manufacturers with typically 500 employees or less. So all the ones you read about in the newspapers, the really big ones, the Boeings, the GEs, the BMWs, the Michelins, we don't work with them. You know, we will if they ask, but they typically have all the resources in-house that they need. It's the small guys that we're there for and to support. Okay, it works. All right, good. But like, you know, they say no man or no woman is an island. When you're supporting your state's manufacturers, you can't be an island either. And we do it with the assistance of a whole host of partners. South Carolina Department of Commerce, South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce, and lots of others, including the Manufacturers Alliance, the SBDC. In fact, if you look at the logos on here, you'll probably determine that if your name starts with the initials SC, we'll partner with you. Okay, so what do we do to help those manufacturers? How do we do it? Well, it's around about consulting, boots on the ground, bottom line focused consulting. It's training either in person or online. And again, the focus is on improving the bottom line competitiveness of those manufacturers. Today's presentation and what we're talking about today is the sharp end. You'll quickly realize that, you know, the only thing I have in common with Eddie is a weird accent. I'm not going to talk to you about Greek gods, and I am not an IT or cybersecurity expert. I mean, I can barely talk English here, so, you know, stay with me. But what I wanted to do today was talk about cybersecurity in terms of the business case for it, okay? If you're there and you're in that C-suite or you're the operations people, why does it matter? And basically, at SCMEP, we always look to three things. You know, why cybersecurity is important. Reducing risk, keeping your existing customer base, and then being in a position to grow by attracting new customers. So, and I'm sure these statistics, in fact, I think I heard Adam Anderson relay some of these earlier this morning when we first started out. But why manage risk? The risk and threat impact around about cybersecurity is huge. 43% small and medium-sized manufacturers, our client base, been targeted over the last year. Only 14% of them are prepared to deter the attack. It is truly scary. This is something that the MEP system, the national system, and SCMEP has been involved in with 5 years. And I've got to say, I'm a little disappointed that it is still very much an uphill struggle. I'm not even going to try and remember which Greek god it is that rolls that rock up. But yeah, it's felt a lot like that. You know, so our job there is to educate, and then assist. And that's what we do. The cost of attacks. Adam quoted it this morning. I think he quoted his figures were from IBM. Typically $1.2 million. 1.2 million. Do you know that 72% of the manufacturers in South Carolina have 20 employees or less? 72%. And that is pretty well replicated across the country. So can you imagine a $1.2 million hit to a company with 20 employees, a manufacturing company with 20 employees? Catastrophic. For small businesses, 60% of all victims of a data breach permanently close their doors within 6 months of the attack. Permanently close the door. So that's somebody's hard work, that's somebody's dream, that's somebody's legacy, that's their children's inheritance, the grandchildren's inheritance, it's the family's income, and it's the employee's family income gone within 6 months. So this is why it is so important and why we're so passionate about it. Okay. You know, customer requirements, keeping those existing customers. We titled this one, Coming Soon to a Supply Chain Near You. That's what we're starting to see. We're starting to see the rollout of, you know, if you're operating in a particular supply chain, the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, and the tier ones are starting to ask questions around about this. They're starting to look. It's no longer, is it your cost, quality, and delivery that are up to scratch? So you'll keep the business. Do you have the right quality certification? It's now, do you have the right cybersecurity posture? Do you have the right hygiene? Are you following the right protocols and meeting the right standards? So the one that we'll talk about in a little bit here is the one that's been rolled out by the Department of Defense. It's CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. That's coming by 2025. It was coming sooner. It's been a little bit delayed. They've reworked it. They've improved it. but it's coming by 2025. If you are a DoD supplier, you will have to meet that requirement. The non-Department of Defense manufacturers, you're in a supply chain, you've got a large OEM that you're supplying, or maybe they're tier 2 or tier 3. You know how those things can work up there, and you can impact them. So again, we're starting to see, particularly in the automotive sector, some of the larger ones, we're starting to see the request, are you ISO 27001 certified? And that's when our phones ring and our emails go, well, what is that? I don't even know what that standard is. Can you guys help with that? Absolutely we can, but it's coming. And then the other one, we've heard a lot about it today, NIST 800-171, those standards. Do you comply with them? Do you understand them? We're starting to see that. And then the other one we're seeing, we're a state that's got a large automotive manufacturing presence here. And a certain large German automotive manufacturer in the upstate, they're starting to require ISO 27001 registration from their tier 1 suppliers, and also what's known as TSAX, the Trusted Information Security Assessment Exchange. That standard, and SCMEP is already helping 2 of BMW's tier 1 suppliers to meet those. So it's coming, guys. There's momentum. You can run, you can hide, you can get into markets, but eventually it's going to come through these supply chains. So be prepared. And then growth and competitiveness. In terms of attracting new clients, new customers, you've got to be able to establish trust with them. Can you be trusted? Are you the sort of company, that when you're being evaluated by the supplier quality engineers, you're being chosen? Yeah, of course they're looking at your on-time delivery record. They're looking at your quality record. They're looking at your costs. But now they're going to be looking at you. Are you going to expose them? Do you pose a cyber threat to their operations or even their other suppliers' operations? So, again, the answer you want to give on that one is, of course, you want to be there and, be trusted. You want to preserve your company's reputation. Everybody loves to read it in the newspaper. There's been a hack, there's been a breach, and you go, well, thank goodness that's not us. But I don't know. It's one of those things I learned a long time ago. I never, ever want to be in the newspaper. And frankly, I'd rather be known for the company that has the good cybersecurity protocols that doesn't appear in the paper than the one that does appear in the newspaper. I would recommend that for every company. It's a differentiation tool. Marketplaces get more crowded and more crowded every year. So how do you differentiate yourself if you're a machine shop or a fab shop from the other one where there's maybe, there might be 30 within a 100-mile radius there? What can set you apart? Well, good cybersecurity, hygiene, policies and procedures can help do that. And again, if the companies that you're looking to supply are doing their due diligence, they're going to be asking for proof and evidence that you can back that up. You can build value through establishing key business systems, and then strategic alignment towards increasingly data, IT, independent, and centric world. This is the way it's going, guys, right? We're not going to wind back to where the printing press is the most innovative thing in the world. It's here to stay, and we're going to get more connected. So again, that's the way the world's heading. Let's be prepared and let's protect ourselves. So, along with our partners, South Carolina Department of Commerce and the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce, what can we do to help? What can we do to help, and particularly the manufacturers that are in the Department of Defense supply chain? Doesn't matter if they're primes, tier 1s, tier 2s, anybody that's in that supply chain. There is a program in place. We're not the only state that's got one, but the important thing and our focus is it is here in South Carolina, and it is available to companies that operate that one. It's called SCCAP, South Carolina Cybersecurity Assistance Program. And what it does, it provides funding to support resources that will help your company, defense contractors, comply with DFARS 7012, NIST 800-171, and CMMC Level 2 standards. Okay? So this is actually resources, qualified resources that I'll come to that will come to your facility and work with you to help get you to the point where you meet those standards. It's funded by the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, or OEA as they used to be known, and they're still known in Andy's head, but that's their new name, OLDCC, and coordinated again through South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce, and Commerce, and the SCMEP. All right. So, what are we doing here today, and why am I up on this stage? Well, the good news is we're in phase 2 of this grant. We had phase 1 that launched in April 2020. That was an interesting time, you know. We got a lot of people's attention in April 2020. But fortunately, these grants usually run for about 12 or 15 months. And when things started down, we were able to take 27 manufacturers in South Carolina through this program. It was very, very successful. And that resulted in us getting a second award, and we're in phase 2. That launched a similar conference here last September 1st, I think it was. And since then, we have taken or are taking 18 manufacturers through. The good news is there is money to support another 13 manufacturers in this program. So that's what we're doing, making you aware of it, and we're looking to recruit. You know, so what are the requirements there? You've got to be in the DoD supply chain. Okay, again, what level you're at? Nope. There we go. Thank you, Cynthia. You've got to be in the DoD supply chain. Doesn't matter, you know, what level you're at there. And we require that you have a bricks and mortar presence in South Carolina. And yes, we will get on Google Maps and we'll check that address. We've had a couple of really interesting applications where probably the only thing that was getting made in that double wide was meth. But anyway, yeah, and obviously they weren't funded, but we will check that out. The grant provides a total of $25,000 in services to move your company towards compliance with DFAR 7012, 800-171, and CMMC Level 2 compliance. $22,000 of that comes from the grant. The copay for the company is $3,000. And you know, what we've done is we've done the work, we've gone out there and we've qualified vendors. So you don't have to do that as the manufacturer. We have already got them. We've got 7, you know, and in fact 3 or 4 of them are actually represented here today that have gone through, and these are people that understand the program, they understand the requirements of the program, how the program's built, the timelines, and the deliverables. So you can work with them and work with them in confidence. And right now, we are in the process of seeking an extension to the grant. We really, really want to get those 13 extra companies in here, and we're looking to extend that grant through June 30th of 2023. So plenty of time to apply, plenty of time to get through this program and move on. The 7 approved vendors, Beryllium Security Info out of Minnesota, out of Minnesota, yep. Canty Technology, and I'm sure you've seen the Canty guys walking around here today. They're out of North Charleston. Cybersecurity Solutions with a booth out there. They're based in Augusta and Tampa. Cytelix, who are in California, they're not here today. Elliott Davis in Greenville, Epsilon in Weaverville in Greenville, South Carolina, and Needling Worldwide, who are right outside the door there, based in Greenville in Georgia. And again, you can work with confidence with any of these firms. These are expertise or experts in this field. Okay. And the project deliverables. Well, what's the expectation of these vendors? What are these vendors going to deliver for you when you apply and your application is reviewed and hopefully approved? So they are going to review your NIST SB 800-171 DoD self-assessment and the score that you generated. That's the first place. They'll assist the client with performing the self-assessment and entering your score in the SPUR system, the Supplier Performance Risk System. If you haven't done that, or you've done it and you've got a score that's maybe negative 180 or negative 200, they're going to help you fix that and fix it quickly. They'll perform a gap assessment. They will develop and implement a POAM, or a plan of action and milestones. They'll develop and implement, again, working in tandem with you, a system security plan. And then they'll provide the resources to do the really heavy lifting, and that is to develop those policies, procedures, and practices per the 110 CMMC Level 2 requirements. They are there, they're your Sherpa, they're your guide, they're the people to pick up the heavy load and help get you there. So whether you're a 5-person machine shop or you're a 250-person fab shop, they are there to support. One thing we've got to do here, we always got to say, this is for consulting and support services. The grant funds, like most grant funds, they're not there to purchase, install, set up, or commission hardware. That's yours. If that needs to be upgraded or installed, that's yours. The grant can't be used for that one, and it cannot be used to purchase software either. It is there to provide the consulting services needed to meet those standards. So, attractive program, 27 gone through phase 1, 18 in process in phase 2. We're looking for another 13. As I mentioned, phase 1 ran from April 1st, 2020 through 7/31/21. We served 27 clients from that. But what I wanted to do was wrap this up with sharing an experience, a testimonial from one of the companies that went through phase 1. And I'm delighted to be able to introduce Robert Irsherwood with AMBAC. AMBAC are an employee-owned company, and they're here in Elgin. If you're from Scotland, you say Elgin. I've learned after 30 years to say Elgin, South Carolina, and I'm delighted to welcome Robert to the stage.
Thank you very much. All right. Yeah. Oh, big green button, huh? Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about let's see. Oh, I think we'll skip that. Talk a little bit about all day long, and we've been talking about security and cybersecurity and all of these kinds of things. And it's everybody in this conference's mind. It's at the top of everyone's mind. But I have to tell you, I am a CEO of a small manufacturer. This isn't my problem, right? I can't solve the security problem. And here's why. Because it's too big, it's too vague, it's too kind of, let's say, amorphic to be a solvable problem. Does that make sense? I have a lot of things on my desk, and one of the things that I can't get my arms around this concept. But I see it's coming down at me, right? It's coming down from, we're a DoD supplier, it's coming down through CMMC. I read in the headlines of people getting ripped off to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. Oh yeah, thank you very much. So I see that this problem is coming down, and I know I have to address it somehow. And so I want to get out ahead of it. I can be more than a little bit competitive, to be honest. So I want to get out ahead of it first, because I think it potentially could be a competitive advantage for my company. But here's what really is my problem. My problem is we have lots of great engineers, we have fantastic machinists, we have super great people in sales and marketing, and the entire IT department is standing on this stage right now, right? We're only 55 people. I can't do anything with this. So what do? I take a look at it and try to sum it up, and I'm looking at, like, what is this thing? Is this thing some kind of distraction? And you first look at it, it looks like a tax almost, right? Like, congratulations, you're going to be met with by the IRS. That's how it feels. And I'm trying to solve it, so I'm looking at it and thinking, well, how are we going to do it ourselves? Well, we got no people who really understand it. I downloaded what it takes, all the requirements, 800-171, and I read it all. I couldn't understand what it said. I'm not really even sure what this stuff means. So I do. Andy and I were joking around earlier. What happens always with me when stuff crosses my desk, and I have no idea to look at it, and I'm like, WT, what am I going to do, right? Yeah, I know, we were joking. Yeah, it's not polite, but that's what I'm thinking. So I do what I always do. I call SCMEP. We've had a long partnership for a very, very long time. It's been hugely successful for us to work with SCMEP, because I am not a very good CEO, to be honest. I'm not really good at my job. I'm not very smart, but I know people who are, and that's the key. So I call them and I say, oh, guys, can you help me? So we talk a little bit about it, what's going on, and it was new for everybody. It was new for SCMEP too. And we worked through it, and they came to me and they said, well, we've got this program, the SCCAP program. that we just heard about, that Andy was just describing. And I thought, well, that is really cool, because that solves a couple of things for me right off. There is a cost aspect of it, and to be honest, the cost aspect did catch my eye. But what was really valuable, the most valuable thing to me in the SCCAP program, was that the partners that they set up, the 7 people, the 7 companies, they're vetted. They know what they're doing, right? Because when you look at the trade rags and you're reading the newspaper and stuff like that, you see lots of ads for lots of great companies that sell lots of products that I don't even know what those products do. So I'm not going to buy them. I don't understand the context or the playing field. So they've done the homework on getting partners that you can work with, partners that are going to be able to help you, guide you through the process, and come out with an outcome that's going to be acceptable for everybody and hopefully successful for everybody. So that was a huge, huge value add. So I have to tell you, if you are a small manufacturer in South Carolina, unprompted plug for SCMEP, do yourself a favor and call SCMEP, because they have a lot of different programs, a lot of really great stuff, unless you're a small machine shop. If you're a small machine shop, don't call SCMEP, because frankly, we don't need the competition. But when you take a look at it, you go through the process, it's a very defined process. And I realized pretty quickly that it is a continuous improvement process. Now, I've been in manufacturing a long time. This is my world. And cybersecurity is nothing more than a continuous improvement process, just like ISO 9001, just like Lean, just like all the others. And so this is the model that we've adopted internally. And so annually, actually, coincidentally, it's coming up in October, we go through the whole thing from top to bottom, and we look at all of our potential pitfalls, our gaps. We go through all of it. And we do it as a repeating cycle. It's just part of the way the business is operated. Does that make sense? So it's no longer the big, scary, I don't even understand it thing out there that I got to do because the IRS is going to show up. Now it's an opportunity to improve my company from the inside out. And it's rigorous, and it's repeated, and it goes on and on like that. So it becomes just part of the way the business is operated. That is an interesting trick. Because one thing that you realize pretty quickly in any continuous improvement process, well, 2 things. One of them is you get better as a company in lots of ways you didn't anticipate. And the other one is you never get to the end of the rainbow. So I'm not sure if I'll ever get a graduation announcement or a graduation ceremony that congratulations, you're now cybersecure. You can kind of rest. That's never going to happen, right? So when you think about it, there is no done in this. And that, I think, is a really valuable point of view. So the one tip that I would give people who are starting on this journey, well, the 2 tips. One of them is find a friend, because there are a lot of resources out there. The second tip is forget about trying to be at the end or trying to be secure or anything like that. Just try to be better, right? So in your system you got something that's not right. You probably have more than one thing that's not right, but just fix it. And tomorrow fix another thing. And then tomorrow fix another thing. And over time, you'll get ahead of it, and you can cross that bridge. And we found that risk management and cybersecurity has actually increased our business opportunities in a couple of different ways. I'll give you 2 quick examples. One of them, sliding into COVID, as everybody was, we were worried about the health and safety of our team. And we're employee-owned. The people that I work with are the most important people that I know, absent other than my family, right? In a lot of ways, they're extreme. And so I'm very worried about their health. Well, some of the tools and technologies that we deployed as part of our cybersecurity project enabled us to work, quote, from home, or to spread out our workforce within the plant, and we could communicate and collaborate over Teams and these other kinds of tools that we've implemented as part of cybersecurity. So there you go, a business advantage that came out of the cybersecurity program. The second one is right now, if you're in manufacturing, you've got a hiring problem. I can almost guarantee that you can't hire enough people. The tools and technologies and framework that we put in as part of our cybersecurity program that I learned going through the process has enabled us to implement a really nice work from home program where we're able to work with really, really capable, fantastic people who are also stay-at-home parents. So they get to be stay-at-home parents, and we get to have them be part of our team. only enabled because we can communicate with them on an ongoing basis in a secure framework, right? So another really probably relevant for most people in the room today. So then that basically as I was saying, this constant improvement process, this cycle of which was kicked off working with SCMEP and the cybersecurity, is creating business advantages for us. So who is us as I talk about business advantages? We do precision machining. We're best known for fuel injection. We're a fuel injection OEM manufacturer for a defense application. We are employee-owned and open book managed. So if you ever get a chance, and I'd love to invite you to come to the factory and walk around a little bit, the men and women that you meet that are running drill presses and driving forklifts, they own the company. They're my boss. We have been doing this for over 100 years. We started in 1910, and I'm proud to say that in 2022, we were named the best place to work in South Carolina. In 2021, we were best place to work in South Carolina, recognized as the best place to work. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'd love for you to come to the plant and take a walk. Yeah.
Alrighty. So I'm curious. There we go. I'm curious as to whether the introduction of more cybersecurity represented a culture change for your employees in any way. Because as you pointed out, there are a lot of similarities between cybersecurity and then process engineering or getting better with iterations over time. But there's also a lot of cybersecurity that is very hard do's and don'ts that could be shocking if you're not used to doing that. So I'm curious, among you and your 20 closest friends here, were there any culture shocks about that within your organization?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. And that goes to a couple of things. One of them, so yes, straight answer. But one of the culture shocks, one of the initial culture shocks is that we had to think of our threats that are coming at us as they don't stop at the walls. So the first thing that we had to kind of understand and work on as a team was that the threats are inside the building. And then when I say that, I immediately have a problem. They're like, the CEO just said there's a threat in the building. There's only 55 of us. We've known each other for 25 years. So is it you? And no, it's not like that. But because you no longer, once upon a time you could say I've got a robust firewall, therefore the interior is secure. You can't say that anymore. There's no such thing as an interior that's secure. And so we had to start thinking about whether or not we think of it ourselves, we are operating on a global platform, and the entire globe can come into our shop floor, right? So that was an aspect of the security. The other thing that was a really kind of a cultural thing that we had to get used to is all of the stuff that happens around it, like password changes, two-factor authentication, and all those kinds of things, are not a burden, right? So because the first thing you get as an IT person is like, freaking passwords. Why do I have to have, no. By the way, your medical records are on this computer. Do you want everybody in the world to know your family's medical status? How about your paycheck? You want that published on the internet? Well, help me out here. The password is part of that. It's part of protecting the company. It's part of protecting our national security. But it's also part of protecting your family. Yeah. So, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. No, so it seems like you had to, what I heard was, at least on the second point, you made it personalized, right?
Personalize it, yeah,
right. And
absolutely.
on the first point, you had to rethink what a threat meant.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you're dealing with, manufacturing people or just people in general that are not interested in cybersecurity, you're imposing a change on them, and they could perceive it as negative. So I want them to perceive it accurately. And the truth is, within our company, we hold a lot of information about you, including your children. And I want your children to be safe. Yeah.
And sorry, just one more. What has been the relationship within your supply chain to the larger manufacturers up the chain from you? Has it changed at all relative to the cybersecurity posture that you've sort of implemented?
Make sure I understand it. So you're talking about our downstream supply chain?
Yeah, so from what little bit I understand of fuel injection, that
Yeah.
goes into a larger mechanical process.
Sure.
Right? Do you also make those other larger mechanical items, or do you supply your fuel injectors to somebody else? And
So-
has your relationship with that somebody else changed because of your cybersecurity changes?
Yeah, there's a couple of big changes that are happening. So we manufacture fuel injectors and fuel pumps. Those go into an engine. The engine goes into a primary weapons platform, and then it goes off into the world and does a very important job. So our relationship is with a prime contractor. One of the things that's changing with our prime contractor in terms of just in cybersecurity implementation is that we don't know, I'm not sure that they know, well, in fact, I know that they don't know because they would tell us that exactly where CMMC is an evolving target. And so we're not real sure as we kind of grope through this together exactly where, now it's the rules lately, the rules are getting clearer and we can kind of find our way, so we're okay with that. So that aspect of it's changed. One of the things that I think as a community we could do a much better job is teaching the rules down to lower and lower in the supply chain, because I'm on the leading edge of it, but if you sell product to me, you're in DoD supply chain, and then this falls to you. And so I need to be a mentor to my suppliers, which might be, I'm only 55 people, we're not a big company, but they might be 12 people or 5 people. But now they're in this DoD supply chain and they have to, let's say, act like it, right? So, yeah. Did I answer your question again? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Another question?
Yeah.
Okay. We want to thank Robert Irsherwood, please.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
And also, I have to disagree with you on one thing that you said.
Oh?
Yeah.
Good.
So you said, and this is for you, you
thank
said
you.
that you're not a very good CEO. You are an amazing CEO. And I've had the pleasure to go inside the AMBAC plant, and his invitation is genuine. It's one of the most well-run, engaging. Employees are having fun. They're enjoying their job, and they love this man, and you can certainly understand why. So please go visit AMBAC when you can.
Please,
because
yeah,
it is
absolutely.
an
Come
outstanding,
visit us.
Outstanding
And it's
plant,
not-
and we're just so happy you're here in
Yeah.
South Carolina. So.
I just get to have the job that has a desk. I'm not
Yeah.
anybody special.
Yes, you are. Yes, you make it special. You do.
Thank you.
You make it very special. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming. Okay. Next, we have Claire Allen is going to come and talk to us, and she is a security architect. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Okay, now it's on. So, small group, there's a lot of things going on, but one thing I want to start with is who has walking away today with one nugget, one new data point, one new nugget of information?
It's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
So that's what we're here for. And so with competing, we've got the students that are outside, we've got the vendors, we have 2 other sessions going on at the same time. So there's obviously a lot of information, a lot of excitement about cybersecurity. So I'm coming to cybersecurity from a couple of perspectives. One, I work at Mantech International. We're a large federal system integrator, and I sit on the board for the Charleston Defense Contractors Association, and I was chairing the education committee. So with those 2 frameworks and those 2, I'm not technical, I'll go right ahead and just say I'm not the cybersecurity expert, but you don't have to be. That's where cybersecurity is such a dynamic platform. I do have slides, if we could. Yes, thank you. And so from that, supply versus demand. So that's what I want to really focus on is there a workforce gap? And the answer is yes. But why is there one, and what can we do to close that? Why is the demand so high, and why is the supply so low? And so we're going to get into some very specific conversation points about that. So the next slide is closing the cybersecurity workforce gap just a fairy tale? So are there enough people interested in joining the workforce and being part of cybersecurity, do they even know what really cybersecurity is? It's not like you have a uniform or a badge or something that identifies you as a cybersecurity professional. So is it just a fairy tale? And we'll talk about some of the numbers that the gap is. And so what we have to do, our charge, is to take all those tadpoles, the college students that we have, the high school students that we have, the STEM programs, and develop those tadpoles into princesses and princes, and then into the unicorns that everyone's looking for, especially in the defense industry when we talk about labor categories. So globally, the shortage is over 3 million cybersecurity professionals. Right now, we have 4.2 cybersecurity professionals in the workforce, and we need almost as many as we have globally. In the United States, we need you'll see numbers between 700,000 and 1 million more cybersecurity professionals. And so that's a very large gap. There's a poll out on the app that's asking, do we think it's a fairy tale? Can we close this cybersecurity workforce gap? And I think you heard earlier in the day that there are in the next 10 years, South Carolina alone will need more than 6,000 cybersecurity professionals. And so think of those numbers. We need 700,000 more, 660,000 in the private sector and 40,000 in the public sector. And right now, sitting in a foreign country, there are 100,000 hackers just sitting there 24/7. That's a small number. That's just one country. There are hundreds of thousands of hackers that are trying to defeat our defenses and our systems on a 24/7 basis. And so sticking with a few more numbers, we need 700,000 in the U.S. Right now, in the state of South Carolina, across all of our colleges, part-time students, full-time students, HBCUs, technical colleges, we have 239,000 students enrolled in programs. Only a fraction of them are enrolled in a cybersecurity program. And so even if all 239,000 of those students were enrolled in cybersecurity, there are many, many obstacles that would kind of not be barriers, but that would hinder them from joining the workforce tomorrow, and those are the barriers that we need to take down. So why is there a workforce gap? Really, there's one on the bottom, that the burnout. We're going to work our way down to that. But number one, why is the demand so high? And so just a real quick show of hands. What do you think the number one reason that we have such a gap in our workforce? Why is the demand for cybersecurity professionals so high? Anyone have a guess of what the number one? It's cyber crimes. Cyber crimes, that defense side of things. Cyber crimes is the number one reason that the demand continues. The second one is our increased devices. Who has a smartphone with them today? Raise your hand. Who has a smartwatch? Who has an iPad with them or a computer with them? Who's connected to the Wi-Fi that's here today? All right, so all of those connected devices. Do you remember when the goal was to have a computer in every home? Now, just imagine, that would be one computer in every home. Imagine, think about all the devices you have at home. So the number we heard earlier today was that there are 29 billion connected devices, and that number is only going to continue to increase. So the number one reason, or the second reason that there's such a demand for cybersecurity professionals is all of our connected devices. And the second, or the third, is reliance on technology. So we've heard the saying, there's an app for that. There's an app for Chick-fil-A. You can avoid the line. There's an app for Chick-fil-A. It needs to be secure. Your credit card information is going on there. Almost everything you do is a digital transaction, automatic deposit. You remember when you actually got a paycheck and you took that to the bank? Well, what do you do now? It's electronically deposited. So that's another digital transaction. All of our financial information is out on the web. Who goes to the bank nowadays? Does anyone drive to the bank to deposit a check? Anything? Nope. If you get a check, which it's rare these days, but if you get a check, you snap a picture of it on your app. And so, again, the increased reliance on technology is why the demand will continue to grow. And then government regulations. We have executive orders. So I work in the federal as a federal system integrator, and we work in the defense industry, and there are regulations that we have to meet, and those executive orders for secure networks. The talent pool is another reason why there's such a workforce gap, is that right now 20% of the cybersecurity workforce is women, and 20% is all collective minorities. And so it's really, we need to diversify that talent stream. And we'll talk about the next one, the unrealistic expectations. I actually did a survey across multiple companies that have cybersecurity job postings up right now. And there are two things that were almost on every one. I'm going to show you on the next slide. And then the need for continued skill development, certifications. So once you get a certification, you have to keep it up. And in order to move to the next level, there's another certification you need. And there's a litany of tests, a litany of tools that you need to be certified on. So just continuing to develop. So first you have a degree, you've got some years of experience, and now all of the tool sets. And that really leads to burnout. And in the burnout, you do a career change. We need to reverse that. We want the career changers to be coming to the cybersecurity industry. So again, I work with federal system integrators. So I work with companies that are putting employees and cybersecurity professionals on a contract. So we have to have certain labor category qualifications. The number one is right off the bat, and this is across the majority of the job postings, is a bachelor's degree. So you can almost consider that an entry to barrier. So number one qualification, a basic labor category qualification, is the bachelor's degree. And next is 5 years of cybersecurity threat analysis experience. So right off the bat, you need a degree and 5 years of experience. Those are the basic labor category qualifications. You won't be able to read this, but there's some things I just want to highlight on here. And these are some of the preferred. So let's just go through, and on the very first bullet, I think you see the last word in that bullet is Splunk. So now I need a degree, I need specific years of experience, and I need a specific named tool. So Splunk is a tool. And many other ones. I was just listening to what the South Carolina is doing in their internship program, and you will also come out with a certification for IBM QRadar, Tenable, Microsoft, Cisco, Checkpoint, Alien Vault. And if you were to look across a lot of labor category and job postings, you'll see all of those, plus many, many more. So now I need a degree, I need X number of years of experience, I need certain OEM or tool certifications, I need 3 years of experience in this, I need 4 years of experience in that, a minimum of 2 years experience in application servers and containers. I need some real world incident management experience. And now we're going to get into sort of they call them soft skills, but they're still very, very necessary. So I need some analytical and critical thinking skills. I need communication skills, written and oral communication skills. I need leadership and listening skills, multitasking ability, negotiation skills, oral and written communication skills, organizational skills, presentation skills, and project management skills. So let's break that down a little bit. Why would you need the soft skills? So let's think about the negotiation skills. Why do you think you would need negotiation skills in the cybersecurity arena? Any guesses to why you would need negotiation skills? There was lots of conversations on it earlier today, and it really was around how do you convince somebody that what you see is really what it is? You need those negotiation skills to say, this needs attention, this doesn't need attention, or it's going to cost $700,000 to implement this new program. So negotiation skills. So you have to you're not just standing there or sitting there and looking at screens, you have things to do with that information that you see in front of you. So there are some requirements and some barriers to entry, and it really depends on if you're public sector or private sector. But the goal is to really focus on how do we close the workforce gap. We know that there is one, we know that it's large, but how do we close it? So what are some of those solutions? Start younger. So does anyone remember career day in like kindergarten, first grade, second grade? Absolutely, right? So who came? They generally had a uniform, and you could identify them right away that that is what their profession was. A police officer, a firefighter, a teacher, a doctor, a dentist. You could easily recognize them. But can you look around and recognize a cybersecurity professional? Do you get an idea of what they do? So what we need to do, especially when we're younger and getting into the STEM programs, is paint a picture. We need to bring the intangible to the tangible. How do we make a cybersecurity individual, professional, a tangible? What does that look like? And then tap into diverse talent streams. We need to really reach out to all the HBCUs. There's a lot of programs going on with HBCUs, the technical colleges, transitioning military, and even military spouses. And so there's a lot of work streams or talent streams that we can tap into. And returning to work. Nowadays, companies have some very liberal leave programs. And so when you leave your current job and you're off for maybe 3 months or 6 months, you might not want to go back and do the same thing you were doing again. So how do we tap into those? And that's one of the solutions for closing the cybersecurity workforce gap. The next one is apprenticeships. But apprenticeships are not free. So we can put apprenticeship up here, but there is a cost associated with a small business and even a large business having an apprentice in their company. So we'll just do some rough math really quick. So, and we'll use an example. So the South Carolina DO example is that they have the cohorts, excuse me, for 27.5 hours a week for 12 weeks. So that's 1,440 hours at, excuse me, $15 an hour. So it costs $21,000 or more to host that apprenticeship. So there is, a benefit from a tax credit perspective, but there is a significant cost associated with hosting that apprenticeship. So that is a barrier. Yes, it is a great program, and there are lots of those programs out there, but we have to have the small businesses and even the large businesses be able to sustain that cost for hosting that apprentice. Internships, and I heard several speakers earlier and several other comments say it has to be a paid internship. So if you're back to a paid internship, you're back to that same point where there is a cost. It's one of the solutions, but we have to find a way where the company itself, who's training this workforce, if they're going to spend that money, $21,000 for a part-time apprentice or intern, how do they retain that employee? So they're not training them and then they move on to somewhere else. And then reskilling and translating your skill sets. So on average, do you guys know on average how many different careers you have in a lifetime? Does anyone have a guess of how many different? Somewhere between 5 to 7 years. That's right. You have 5 to 7 different careers in a lifetime. Unlike my dad, who was an accountant for his entire 45-year career. But we need to be able to translate the skill sets that we have, and we need to be able to reskill some of the workforce that's transitioning. So between reskilling and translating your skill sets, there's people who are going to be doing a career change. We need to find ways to make the cybersecurity arena attractive to them and reduce those barriers. So think about how we reskill. There's so many resources out there. I know some conversations today, especially the one in the fireside chat that was here, talked about how do we pull all of these resources into one place so that you know where to go to find an apprenticeship program, to find an internship program, to find free training, to find, there's all kinds of websites out there. And so where do you go to kind of lower that barrier? And there's initiatives out there right now to provide more than 1 million cybersecurity certifications, which there's a long list of them, a big gamut, by 2026. So that's a lot of people, but the whole goal is to reduce that barrier to entry so that you're provided that certification without having to have the expense of it. And so I think this is pretty much still hot off the presses, but South Carolina launched the statewide cyber workforce initiative. What does that really mean? It is a great initiative, but what does it really mean? How do we break it down? I think that when Governor McMaster came in today. I think one of the first things that he said when he came up to Mike was to be bold. And so we have to be bold, and I think this is a very bold move. So SC Cyber is a statewide cybersecurity initiative, and it's opening an office in North Augusta. Does anyone know where North Augusta is? North Augusta, South Carolina? Okay, good. It's where I was born, but that's not why it's so special here. But it's right across the Savannah River from Augusta, Georgia, which is where the Army is really focusing on their cyber center of excellence. So for South Carolina to be so connected to Augusta and right at the sharing resources potentially, will be kind of, recruiting people across the border. But it's right there in the hub. They talked about where this is a swell of cybersecurity workforce, and I do believe that this initiative is going to be part of that. And so I put the mission up here of the cybersecurity, SC Cyber's mission, so that we could see what are the words, and then let's go back to those solutions. So it's to be a liaison connecting people in academia, industry, and government to help produce a skilled cybersecurity workforce. So now let's go back and look at those solutions. Starting younger, getting into academia. What does it mean? Is that K through 12? Is it college? Is it coming out of high school? It's the entire gamut. That's what it is. It's the entire gamut. We have to start younger, and we have to sort of paint that picture. And the South Carolina initiative is definitely going to do that. And so I'm sure that you've heard the term, well, that'll take an act of Congress. Has anyone heard that term? It'll take an act of Congress. Well, there have been 3 recent acts of Congress that are all focused on reducing the cybersecurity workforce gap. 3 commissions have been stood up in the last several years, and they were created specifically to reduce the cybersecurity workforce and so gap. And so those are 3 acts of Congress. So now you know there really are acts of Congress, and there are 3 or more. This is really just 3, but there are acts of Congress focused on reducing that cybersecurity workforce gap. So we've got a little bit from the school and the academic side. We have South Carolina's initiative. There are federal initiatives. And it just happens that in my presentation, I was sharing what I was doing with a colleague of mine, and she used to work at DHS. And she shared with me an initiative that DHS has, and Mr. Bible was with us earlier today, and he was speaking of the same program. So the federal system is aggressive on closing the gap, and they're committed to hiring 100 cybersecurity professionals by the close of the fiscal year. And being in government contracting, we live by the fiscal year, so that is 15 days from today. So within 15 days, they want to hire 100 cybersecurity professionals to pull into their cybersecurity service program. So I just pulled the entry track, because we talked about on the slides before with labor categories, you have to have 5 years of experience, 4 years for this, minimum of 2 for this. And if you look at this entry track, and you heard him speak about it earlier, this cybersecurity specialist position is 0 to 2 years. And the words are so key here. It's an entry-level cybersecurity professional who is primarily a learner, but participating in a formal development program to gain technical expertise. And so they want someone with 0 to 2 years of experience. And people ask me all the time, how do you think I get in? I don't have this degree, and I don't do this, and I don't do that. And the very first thing I tell them is, why would you pre-disqualify yourself? Apply. Find out if your skills translate, but don't pre-disqualify yourself. You will never know if your skills translate if you don't apply. So you have to apply. And this is one federal program that is focused on bringing in the entry level and building them up in order to take those tadpoles with 0 to 2 years of experience and turn them into those cybersecurity princesses and princes. So there is a poll on the app, and it asks, do we think that closing the cybersecurity workforce gap is a fairy tale? So with all the initiatives that we've talked about, do we think it's a fairy tale? When I looked on the app last time, it was just about 50-50. Half of the responders said it's a fairy tale. We're never going to close that gap. And then half of them said, yeah, I think we've got a chance. But it's programs like this that kind of translate your skills and bring you in and give you that opportunity. to grow. And this is only one federal initiative. There are many, many federal initiatives like this. But it really goes back to, I think the saying goes, it's not what you know or who you know, but who knows you. And so how do we get all of these programs and all of these opportunities in one place so that people wanting to break into the cybersecurity arena know where to go and know what to do? So in closing, I will poll just inside the room here. Do we think that closing we'll just stick with inside the US. Do we think that closing our cybersecurity workforce gap of 700,000 cyber professionals is a fairy tale? It's a fairy tale. Absolutely, depending on time frame. So tomorrow, we're not going to do it tomorrow. Can we do it over the next 2 years? No. How about the next 5? How about the next 10? But guess what? Okay, we've got a buyer, sold. The next 10. So again, is it a fairy tale? We have so many initiatives. How do we pull them all together? How do we lower those barriers to entry? How do we provide the education, the certifications, the trainings, all of those things needed in order to fill the positions? And a cybersecurity position, it takes longer to fill, almost twice as long to fill as a regular IT position. And then they are also the most recruited professional across IT. So if you are a cybersecurity professional, and a speech I did a couple of months ago, if you are a cybersecurity professional, chances are, and you're on LinkedIn, chances are you're being recruited by someone else. So not only if you're in an apprenticeship program or you're a young cybersecurity professional and you're working for a company, that company is potentially paying to train you and supporting your certifications that you need to get. But there's a chance that you're going to leave them and go somewhere else. So right now, we're just competing with each other for the workforce, and we need to actually grow more so that we stop competing with each other and we are able to close that workforce gap. Thank you.
Any questions for Claire? All right. James has got one. Here we go.
Hello, great presentation. Could you just tell us a little bit about what your organization is doing to address maybe velocity issues in terms of hiring, i.e. the time from submission of an application, receipt, review of an application, and then hire? As I talk to a lot of folks within the industry, one of the biggest gripes, if you will, that I hear is getting ghosted.
Absolutely.
I submit an application, I get an email back saying, hey, thank you so much. If your application aligns with something that we're looking for, we'll be in touch. Or even beyond that, they'll get a first or second contact beyond that automated response, and then absolutely nothing. So could you just tell us a little bit about what your organization is doing within that space, and then maybe some recommendations for others that are maybe looking to overcome those challenges?
Absolutely. In the federal arena, being a government contracting company, there are 2 reasons that you put a job posting out. Number 1 is if you're bidding on work and you need to be sure that if you win that work, you have the pipeline of staff ready to go. I think that that's probably where some of that ghosting comes into place. And then the second reason you put a job posting out is because someone left, someone was promoted, you need an immediate hire. And so what we have done, what Mantech has done, is there are so many initiatives. We have an apprenticeship program, we have an internship program, we have an accelerator program, but it's all automated. So it's that automation, and when does the human interaction come in? Because we heard so many AI conversations today, we could automate the process, but that does not eliminate the human that needs to be involved. So that first response you're going to get is an automated email. It's automatically generated when you submit. What Mantech has done is eliminated that automatic generation. So the very first thing that it does, it is screened, literally screened, and you will know immediately. That first response back will be, if it's a specific position that you're being put in for, or that, whether it's a referral or you submitted it, if it matches, then you get a response that says keywords or your skill sets match this position or a couple of other ones, because they're recruiting across many, many programs. I have to say right now, if I looked at Mantech's career page, there may be greater than 3,000 open positions. That's across the whole company, so not all cyber. So I think removing the automation, making it human interactive, and the email that comes back, if you are not qualified for that position and there isn't something they're going to keep you for, then it's an automatic, that feedback is automatic. Down the line, so you're talking two steps into the recruiting process, I don't know from a recruiting perspective if you can eliminate it 100%, but what I find that we've done is if they fill the position with someone else, they will do a closeout email to all candidates that have been in that process. And that came from internal feedback, because Mantech is huge on promoting from within. And so I've had 3 positions inside of Mantech, and it's because they do absolutely promote from within. But even as an internal recruit, you would get ghosted. And then you'd hear that someone else had been given the position. So a lot of feedback, that's why they removed that sort of everything being automated, and they have learned to close out those open positions. So I think closing it out.
Just not necessarily a question, but a quick comment that I think a lot of people miss for resources. We specifically target separating military and National Guardsmen. A network admin that's in the National Guard or separating military can be quickly transitioned into a cyber field that would take years to do otherwise. So
Absolutely.
Just one of our tactics for what it's worth.
I like that. And so on this list, what you did not see, education, years of experience, certification, was also a clearance. But we just don't publish that. But also that's that other 4th barrier to entry coming into the federal space is that clearance. Absolutely. All right. Anything else? Thank you, guys.
Any other questions for Claire? Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're at the conclusion of our sessions here in Ballroom A, and I was expecting Susie Shannon to come in and announce some prize winners, and I do not know who the prize winners are, so I cannot announce the prize winners, otherwise I would be happy to do it. You want me to fake it? I have a goodie bag down here. Would you like that? I do want to say thank you. You all stuck in here all afternoon, and we had some excellent presentations this afternoon, and so glad that we videotaped them and that we'll be able to share those videotapes and those presentations with other people. Do want to thank you for coming to the conference, spending your day here, choosing to spend your day with us, and we will do this again next year. I believe we've already slated September the 14th. So we will be back here again at the Convention Center and be doing a very similar conference then. So stay tuned to that. You're welcome to stay in the room for a little while. I think Susie probably will make an appearance in the next 15 minutes or so to see if you are a grand prize winner. But thank you. Thank you for your time. We have goodie bags.
Did
you get a goodie? You got a goodie bag, didn't you?
I did.
Right.
I know we were supposed to do some kind of interview or something with Kim.
I know, we were supposed to, see, the way I understood it, when people came involved, the studies that we were going to do. So Alex is their camera person?
just wanted to introduce myself in person. I'm Brian Grady.
Hey, how are you? Good, good. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I used the 6,000 professionals, subscript professionals over the next 10 years.
Yes.
So it's good. You guys stay here all day?
I had another commitment in the morning, so I came at lunchtime.
this does
and I've been here since. So,
But you got lunch.
yeah.
You came in time for lunch.
I did
Good.
come in time.
You were good.
Yeah.
I thought you did great.
Yeah, obviously, duty. Colleagues back there. But,
Next door. Yeah, and I attended this session, but
Ian O'Brien,
still speaking when I had to.
formerly with the.
The famous.
Oh no. See, now I feel like I need to run away from this conversation.
yeah,
So Mark Hendrick and I used to work together. We were
Absolutely.
talking about how I've got dreams.
I'm still building my team,
He's
but
got dreams.
you see that we
We
have a
want
lot
to
of
make something happen. And we were at DO together during.
Or the apprentice program.
Yes.
You had to be close enough to come